Well, I know it's not 2006 anymore, so I'll try to avoid jokes about Lucian stealing bikes. But I can't promise anything. At this point it should be obvious that Demacia isn't just full of good guys that are trying to live happily ever after. Unfortunately, Demacia is a very ignorant nation. They cower in fear before magic. This wouldn't be so bad if they lived in a world where one could avoid magic, but living without magic on Runeterra is like trying to appreciate the fact that Ahri has another skin. It's not going to happen. But still, Demacia has its way to protect itself from magic. The great city of Demacia was founded during the Rune Wars. Yes, by the way, that is the name of the capital city. Demacians could be more creative. On one side you had mages drunk with power, and on the other side you had people who fled the war. Those who fled the war eventually ran into magical woods that had the ability to absorb magic. Those people then realized they could use the magical wood to create other materials that would have the same traits. And that's how Demacia was built out of petricite, a stone-like material capable of dampening magic. Since the city was built as an answer to unfair cataclysmic wars, the fear of magic is justified. But different champions support different views on this topic. You have Lux, a girl born with the ability to wield the light. And of course, since that makes her a mage, she had to endure years of mental torture as her parents tried to cure her affliction. Her brother Garen is a pure soldier, and such he follows Demacia's ideals almost blindly, even though in secret he knows what Lux is, and one day he will have to decide which side he will join. Then we have someone like Jarvan, the son of the king of Demacia. Yes, Jarvan III is still there, by the way. His life was saved by a half-dragon, so Prince Jarvan is fine with having Shyvana in Demacia. But then we have someone like Vayne, the definition of a morally grey character which I hate. Not because her story would be awful, but because Vayne is a horrible human being. Granted, when she was a child she witnessed Evelyn violently murdering her parents, so I understand why Vayne would have zero tolerance towards magic. But she doesn't hesitate to kill her friends the second she realizes they have a sliver of magic in them. Thankfully, the character we will have a look at today isn't as horrible. He's a pretty good guy actually, despite him also being a monster hunter. Lucian has a different motivation than just, look, magic, kill it! He and his wife Senna pushed back the undead, things that simply act against nature. And when Senna died, Lucian's focus shifted towards Thresh, the Warden of the Damned. But we'll get to that. Lucian's lore is separated in 4 different stories. The first part comes from Lucian's release teaser. This was 5 years ago, but it is on Universe, so it is canon. It mentions that when Lucian and Senna accepted their weapons, they also accepted their mission to rid Runeterra of evil, and that these weapons can't be wielded by everyone. Only those pure of heart and with fearless mind can use them properly. In the release teaser we also learned that the small gun belonged to Senna and the bigger one to Lucian, as indicated by the signatures. But when Senna was taken by Thresh, Lucian picked up Senna's gun too. By the way, how the guns were made or how they got them is still not mentioned anywhere. After this we got Lucian's bio. Here we learn that the guns are relic weapons imbued with ancient power. We could assume they are white because of petricite, but they shoot magic after all. I think some magic has to be involved. Since these relic weapons were designed to bring light to the darkness, it wasn't really magic they considered evil. So even though they were Demacians in heart, their mission was to focus on the undead, specifically those corrupted by the blight of the Shadow Isles. The two made an excellent team. Senna's dedication to their cause never faltered, and Lucian's kindness and warmth touched the hearts of the many lives they saved. 2 parts of one whole. They were devoted and inseparable. Where is the key word, because we know how this ends. When they arrived near the Shadow Isles, they witnessed horrors that would break most warriors. And here is where I wish Riot gave League better engine, because I doubt they will ever be able to capture the dread in-game. For example, this is Hecarim. This amalgamation of Dark Souls bosses is a real concept of what he looks like. But in-game, we got this guy. Not bad I suppose, at least compared to this guy. But then we got others. Giant Juggernauts, Soul Shepherds, Fallen Souls, Eternal Hunters, Karthus summoning long-lost undead creatures. All of these creatures strike fear in the hearts of mortals. And don't get me started on living books. I get anxiety thinking about spelling bees. Then we have Thresh, and even he looks more twisted in reality. This could be because in the new concept they are trying to base him on the Blessed Isles. Senna and Lucian could deal with any undead monstrosity manifesting across Runeterra, but they were no match for Thresh. It wasn't that Thresh would be more powerful than the other creatures, it's that he wasn't mindless, and he was much smarter. He was so smart he was able to lure Senna into his lantern and imprison her soul, which isolated Lucian, who had to face his mission alone for the first time. While this took away some of the light inside Lucian, it replaced it with dark determination. He picked up Senna's relic weapon and vowed to see their mission through to the end. Ever since that day, Lucian became the Shadow Isle's most dangerous foe. The third time Lucian was mentioned in a League of Legends story was in the Shadow and Fortune, a story depicting what happens when the Black Mist reaches Bilgewater during the Harrowing. Lucian had a big part here. At the beginning we could see him walking around, sewing mouths and eyes of the dead shut, so that when they come back they would be useless. In short, he was getting ready for the wave of undead to arrive. The same story also contained a lot of other characters. Miss Fortune was still the main hero. Illaoi made an appearance for the first time even before her release. Olaf became by far the most badass character. He was running around hacking the undead into pieces, and eventually he slayed an undead kraken worm on his own. Each of these characters had their own villain to fight here. For example, Miss Fortune and Illaoi faced Hecarim. This of course means that Lucian faced Thresh again, but this time alone. The catch was that Lucian thought Senna's soul was lost. He didn't think he would be able to ever see her again. So when her face appeared in the lantern midway through their battle, Lucian's connection with her ignited again, and he found a new footing. Suddenly there was hope. Unfortunately, all Lucian was able to do was to push Thresh back into the mist. He was able to wound him, but nothing more. At the end of the story, when the Black Mist retreated, Miss Fortune offered Lucian to stay in Bilgewater and help her gain control over the city. But Lucian refused. Even though he would get to shoot a lot of bad people, his enemy is still the greater evil. Overall, this story was a teaser that Senna is still technically alive. Her soul is lost in the lantern, but she could be brought back. And this brings us to the fourth story. This one is the newest one that's dedicated to Lucian alone. It's called Hunter of Shadows. The story immediately starts with action. Inside a rotting inn, screeching spirits jumped at Lucian with talons and ancient rusted blades. They slashed at him from every direction, but Lucian was fast and each shot magical bullet vaporized one of them. Dark talons raked across one of Lucian's forearms while he was mentally distracted. He couldn't forget Senna after all. Shot after shot made Lucian press forward deeper into the inn. After many waves of chilling spirits, the darkness finally backed away, and the fire in the inn's heart lit the room again. Lucian righted a fallen bench, placed his pistols on a table, and treated his wound. While his leather glove was unmarked, the flesh of his forearm blackened. Then he saw movement in the corner of his eye, and he leapt onto his feet again. He aimed his pistols at the shadowed figure. It was a dark-haired girl, barely in her teenage years. She froze in place at the sight of Lucian. Upon realizing she's not one of the spirits, he lowered his guns, but caught another movement reflected in the girl's eyes. He turned around, but this time he wasn't fast enough. Pale wraith glowing with blue-green light struck Lucian with talons the size of daggers. The blow flung Lucian back 15 feet, making him smash into a shelf full of empty bottles. He was struck in the chest and icy touch grasped at his heart. At this point his pistols were flung across the room. One was too far away to reach, and the other landed at the girl's feet. She picked it up and tried to fire at the wraith, but she freaked out when she realized the gun had no trigger. It simply wouldn't fire. The story then transitions into Lucian's memory. It was a memory of Lucian and Senna when they picked up the relics. Lucian was confused. He didn't understand how can the pistol fire without a trigger. Senna demonstrated that he has to will it to fire. The trigger was in his mind. And as she said so, the target dummy in front of her exploded. Then Lucian picked up the gun. He tried to focus, but nothing happened. Senna explained that he has to will it with every fiber of his body. To which Lucian raised an eyebrow, looked at Senna and said, "Every fiber of my body?" It's not a joke, by the way, it is there. Lucian kept smirking and came up with excuses that he can't focus while she is near. Senna urged him to try more and the memory faded away. The story was now back in the inn. The girl was holding the gun, but it was useless. When the wraith flew towards her, she threw it at Lucian. Lucian caught it midair while he slid for the other gun. He then jumped back to his feet and vaporized the wraith with a torrent of fire. After it was gone, the girl couldn't understand why she couldn't fire the gun. Then Lucian heard a hint of chains in the air, but it was nothing. Thresh was just taunting him. Lucian then walked out of the inn with the words, "Bolt the door and pray for the dawn." He then jumped onto his bike and rode into the sunset. Damn it! Hey, did you know that we have social media and Twitch where we talk about other League facts and stories? And did you know that we have neat mugs and shirts too? The links to all of that will be below. And as always, thank you, come again.